as someone who's passionate about both personal growth and Buddhism, I want to reconcile in this video, or attempt to reconcile, two concepts that might seem opposite. And I think this will resonate with you, especially if you are a fellow analytical thinker who really wants things to make sense and wants things to be accurate. So, essentially, if you're into personal growth, you really want to understand yourself. You really want to build your self awareness, right? Your introspection. You want to grow. You want to be your best self. And yet, Buddhism talks about the self being an illusion. This idea of non attachment, of dissolving the ego. And can you do both? Right? How do you reconcile these two ideas of kind of you want to do personal growth work and you want to dissolve the self? So I think the answer, and Buddhism speaks to this, especially some famous Buddhist people like Dogen Zenji, this idea that there's kind of a certain order here, that you have to first understand yourself before you can let yourself go. And the reason is, if you don't, if you skip that step, then you're not going to be sufficiently stabilized. And there's a great chance that you are going to ignore a lot of your shadow parts. This is where we have the term spiritual bypassing, which means you're kind of bypassing the challenging parts and trying to jump straight to the ultimate destination. You're kind of skipping the shadow to try to go straight to the light. And the problem is that reality is full of shadow. It's a hard world out there. It's hard being alive. And so, if you are not willing to be with the truth of reality, that there's a lot of hardship, then you can't experience kind of the true light if you don't see the shadow too. And so, more specifically, some consequences of if you just tell yourself, I am just going to try to be fully enlightened, I'm going to be fully non-attached, I'm going to push down any sense of the self, then what you're probably going to do is you are going to discount some of your very human needs and preferences. You might be in a relationship where you just let the other person walk all over you. Every time they ask, what do you want? Do you want this or this? If every time you say, no worries, anything's fine, whatever you want, I just go with the flow. It sounds nice. In some ways that sounds enlightened, right? But that's only true if you're saying that from a truly stable, grounded place where you truly feel no preference. Like, yeah, it's all good. Any of these choices, I am going to find the good in. I'm going to see any of these paths as a growth opportunity. Cool. After a lot of growth work, you might get to that place where you are just able to see yes, 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 yes to everything. It's really hard to get there. I've been able to touch into that sometimes, but certainly not to stay in that state for a very long, prolonged period of time. So I think that can be a signal that if you think you're in that state all the time, you might be bypassing a little. Because it really does take a lot of hard work to get to that place where you truly are a yes to everything. The human psyche has a lot of attachment, a lot of preference, a lot of judgment. This thing is good. This thing is bad. I like this thing. I don't like this thing. Right? We are animals. We're biological organisms. And one of the most basic parts of all biological organisms is move toward pleasure, move away from pain. So if you think you don't have any of that anymore, then wow, you must have done some really substantial spiritual work, or you're fooling yourself to some extent. So I think the real path here is, they're parallel, right? So on the one hand, sure, you can be meditating, you can be practicing non-attachment, and you should also be doing the psychology work, right? So there's kind of spiritual work, and then there's psychology work or personal growth work, both at the same time. Um, and certain deeper levels of spiritual work, I think, will only be available to you once you've done a certain amount of psychological work. So really learning to understand, what are my deep needs? Do I speak up for them often enough? Do I make requests? Do I set boundaries? Do I say no when this thing does not feel good to me? Do I really ask for what I want? Am I really clear on what I want, on what my preferences are, and what my psycho-emotional needs are to really feel okay, to feel safe? Or am I really kind of going to this it's all good place from a place of like lack of safety? Of just kind of like pushing that down. Oh, I'm not safe, but no, I don't want to think about that. It's all good, it's all good. Right? That's not the right attitude. The right attitude is to say, oh, actually, I feel unsafe right now for some reason. I'm going to care for myself. I'm going to hold this little baby self. I'm going to be with this ego that is having a hard time right now. And if I can really cultivate that self-love, that self-care, if I can really make myself feel safe and grounded, then I can get to the place of, okay, now that I understand myself, now that it's all clear, then I can let it dissolve more. And I certainly haven't gotten there, so I don't know, exactly what that's like. But I do know the difference between feeling a softening of the ego from a place of kind of trying to force it versus from a place of just gentleness and love. And that latter is so much sweeter, and it feels so much more more truly spiritual. He feels like it's really getting to really the deeper stuff. So I think I really believe that at the deepest depths, the really deepest spiritual levels, it is light. It is beauty and love and interconnectedness, and great joy. But on top of that, there's so many layers of shadow and difficulty and darkness, and so we have to be with that too. And that's what real spiritual work looks like, I think, is a mix of the shadow and the light. And so, if you encounter a spiritual teacher who's just always saying love and light, it's all good, just push away any of those dark feelings and just be in the beauty of everything, then I think that person probably hasn't done sufficient work. I think really the most accurate, the most enlightened spiritual teachers will be with that truth that reality is complex. It is paradoxical. Yes, it's all light, it's all beautiful, it's all wonderful, it's all perfect, and it's really hard. There's a lot of horror in the world, right? So it's kind of, in Buddhism, they talk about the difference between the relative and the absolute, and both are true. It's paradoxical. That the absolute level, sure, it's all interconnectedness, it's all energy, it's all great, it's all perfect. But at the relative level, you are still a consciousness and awareness in an animal body. And that animal body experiences a lot of sensations, a lot of emotions, a lot of things that are really difficult. And so even if at the absolute level it's all one, it's all beauty, whatever, at the relative level, you are still in the day-to-day experience of different challenges. And that really deserves care and empathy and love. So I encourage you to pursue both. Pursue non-attachment, enlightenment, awakening, liberation, oneness, all that good stuff. And also pursue, no, I am a self. This self deserves care, deserves love. I really need to know myself more deeply. Love to hear how that sounds. That lands in you. I wish you a nourishing day.